We are live on the Dimer Sports Betting Podcast, episode 2 of season 1 of this show. I'm your host, Greg. I am joined by my colleague, Dave, and we are here to take you through all our biggest takeaways from NFL Week 1, a little bit of a look ahead to Week 2, and there's plenty more sports than just the NFL to discuss here in our Dimers universe. Dave, how we doing, my friend? What's been going on at Dimers since the last time we got on here and talked?
I'm doing great, Greg. I hope you're doing well as well. After our shared Lions and Cowboys losses in Week 1, we're both a little bit on the rebound here. But better luck for those who were using dimers this week. We killed it at the U.S. Open, ended that on an 7-1 run, or 8-1 run actually, with our final play. Came up about one set short of Amanda Anisimova cashing a plus 2,500 outright, written up by our content king, Nick Slade, on dimers. So pretty good stuff at the U.S. Open. Week 1 was fun. I talked about a rookie touchdown parlay on the first episode with Gianti, Egbuka, and Travis Hunter, which was almost there. Trevor Lawrence underthrew Travis Hunter with like 50 yards of green grass in front of him. But hey, it's Week 1 growing pains. We'll kick ass next time, and we'll get another.
Yeah, we were hyping up the rookies on episode 1, and I feel pretty emboldened by the early impressions. Egbuka especially was like, there's the clip of him talking to Mike Evans in the huddle, calling his shot on the play and the game-winning touchdown on the post route. Genty looked pretty great, I thought. He had a couple big breakaway runs early, and feels like he's going to be a bell cow. And you're right, Travis Hunter was playing both sides of the ball. They wanted him to be a big piece of that offense if Trevor Lawrence can just find it. So, yeah, I feel like we gave the people some good insights. Some of our personal prognostications seem on the right track. And when our personal prognostications are in line with Dimers projections, usually that's how you end up on track. You got to love it. We've also got the Procore Championship on the PGA Tour coming up as well. I know you got some good tidbits for us. You're going to tell us more about that later in the show.
Yep, for sure. We are back with PGA Tour predictions on dimers, a few weeks off after the Tour Championship. Now this is the first event of FedEx Cup Fall, so we'll dig into that. We'll be off again right away with the Ryder Cup, and then back once again for the final, I think, 5 events of the fall before we roll right into next year pretty much. So yeah, we'll dig into that today.
Love it. And then it's also Tuesday, which means on the Dimer Sports Betting Podcast, Fantasy Waiver Wire. So we'll take a look at some potential targets for your fantasy leagues based on what they did in Week 1 and what the Dimers model projects for them heading into Week 2. Don't worry, we've got an entire early look at Week 2 of NFL for you. Our top probability against the spread plays, games with the most prop value, and more coming up just later in the show. Make sure you get your Dimers football season pass. You see the text on the screen right now if you're watching the video version of this. It is $99.99 with promo code FOOTBALL at checkout. You can have Dimers for the entire football season. You're not going to want to miss this. All right, let's go straight into our Week 1 recap. We've got a little game that we are going to call basically big takeaway, overreaction, and then not worried about it. We each came up with one answer for those 3 categories. So let's start, Dave, with your biggest takeaway from Week 1. What do you got?
I mean, until Sunday Night Football, who had Jets Steelers as the biggest game of the week? I mean, this was an excellent game. You had the narrative, Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields facing off from the teams they played for last year. They both delivered like across the board. Rodgers with 4 touchdowns, Justin Fields with a mix of passing and rushing. Week 1's tough. You know, you're trying to pull a lot of info from preseason. Like, do these 9 carries for 30 yards mean anything? Does this guy getting targeted twice mean much? So, you know, it can be tough, but we leaned on the model for this game with our best bet of the week, Jets plus 2.5, and it was a cash. So, yeah, Jets, big takeaway.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers dialing back the clock in that game as well. And I think how we got the plus 2.5 thanks to the model, because moneyline bettors might have felt a little bit differently based on how that game ended. But Aaron Glenn, my old Lions coordinator with his Jets debut, he antagonized Aaron Rodgers all offseason, said, "You're not our guy." And Aaron was speaking at the podium after this game about how it meant a lot to him to take down everybody in the Jets. So I'm with you. A lot of entertaining games in Week 1, but not the sexiest matchup on paper, became pretty damn sexy at the end of that game. My biggest takeaway, I just want to give some love to I think, the two best teams in the NFL. It is the Ravens and the Bills. And you alluded to it, and you're right up there about how until Sunday Night Football, it was the Jets game that was the story, because Sunday Night Football was pretty incredible. I think football fans, fantasy football players, bettors alike, we're all locked in on this for various reasons. And look, my eye test says these two teams are in a tier of their own this year. I watched everything I could from week 1 of NFL. I did not see any teams that caliber wise could approach how those two offenses were functioning. It shouldn't be a surprise. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have been great for years. We know this, but it does feel like we've sort of hit this wall where every year we call them contenders. And then every year, for whatever reason, they don't break through. And it's still the Mahomes story in the AFC, and it's still the Eagles in the NFC and other teams. To me, this year, I feel like these teams are continuing to take incremental steps forward, whereas we have big questions with some of their biggest contenders. The Chiefs have almost certainly taken a step back right now. The Bengals looked iffy at best, sneaking by the Browns, and Joe Burrow had a very quiet debut this year. The Lions have questions on both sides of the field right now. So I think this is just one of those things for me. You know, when we did the season preview episode, the model told us that the Ravens and Bills are the two most likely outcomes here to win the Super Bowl. There may be bigger value depending on what odds you can get with other teams, but they were kind of in a tier of their own. And I think that was backed up hugely by the eye test in week 1.
Yeah. I think at least 5% higher for the Ravens than the Eagles. The Bills were right behind them in the model. That had all the makings of an AFC championship right there.
Yep, crazy. And drama at the end, too, as Josh Allen was able to get his comeback victory. All right, biggest overreaction from week 1. What do you got?
The more I was thinking about this, I don't know if this is even an overreaction or just the truth, but the Dolphins might be playing for the number 1 pick already. Tua did not look good. Tyreek Hill was already complaining. They got absolutely blown out. Lucky to escape with points at all. I think A-Chain scored in the 4th. Maybe it was earlier. I don't know. Of course, the Colts had the do it for Jimmer say power. You know, you have to give them hats off to absolutely throwing off the doors in week 1. But the Dolphins look like last place in the AFC East might be their ceiling. And I'm very curious to see what the updated futures probabilities on Dimers have once those are in the book, probably later today or early Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I talked about how I feel like there is a lot of parity in the league right now, maybe outside of that tier of the top 2. But to me, the parity also extends down to the bottom teams in the league. I don't think there are many franchises coming into this season in tank mode. And that's rare. Like, go throughout NFL history, almost every single year, there's 3 or 4 teams that, you know, coming into a season wouldn't mind being bad and have their eyes on a certain quarterback of choice. I think this draft next season is going to be weird because I don't think there is a consensus, obvious number 1 franchise changing guy. And how teams handle the NFL season in response to that is going to be fascinating. I think you're right. The Dolphins look like the one team that may be on blow it up watch, and there's a lot of unhappy looking body language in that huddle right now. I'm going to get personal with my emotional overreaction here, as I am wont to do, but I am seriously worried the Detroit Lions are cooked. I mean, this was a team that has felt like they were just cracking into a quote unquote championship window. I spent the first 30 years of my life just not knowing anything but misery in terms of rooting for my NFL team. These last 2 years have been special. I think they've been Super Bowl appearance good before you get to the postseason, and had some, you know, obviously frustrations and failures, but they lost both coordinators. We knew this. Last year was special in part because Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn decided to return to Detroit and turn down head coaching opportunities. That was never going to last forever. And I think, you know, the Bears came out, touchdown on their first drive with Ben Johnson's scripted drive. They looked unstoppable. They hit some walls later that they're going to have to work through. But I still think that offense is going to be really good. You watch the Lions in that Packers game, man. This offensive line was a disaster, just missing A-gap blocks the entire night. The run game looked different. Jared Goff looked uncomfortable. So I am full steam ahead on wanting more data points from my Lions. They're playing Ben Johnson and the Bears in week 2. And I'd be lying to you if I said I was confident that the Lions were going to bounce back offensively.
Yeah, you could feel Ben Johnson's presence, the addition on the Bears and the absence with the Lions, twofold. Yeah. And yeah, like you said, you know, it fell flat in the second half, but there's going to be some growing pains. Yeah, not what you want to see for Detroit.
Yeah, 100%. All right, from one overreaction to one thing you're not worried about that maybe the masses are trying to tell you to be concerned about. What do you got?
This one's a little personal for us as a whole. AJ Brown nuked our Thursday Night Football same game parlay with a singular target, I think, in the final 2 minutes of the game on the Eagles' last drive. I'm not going to read too much into that. The Cowboys did have their healthiest secondary they've had in probably 3 years. Trayvon Diggs and Bland, both healthy. I haven't watched the tape. I'm not a big tape watcher, so I don't know if Trayvon Diggs locked down AJ Brown or I mean, they didn't run all over the Cowboys, so it wasn't a matter of they didn't need to pass. But I'm not worried about it unless it happens again. He's A.J. Brown. He's an alpha, 1,000+ yards in both seasons with the Eagles. Talk to me next week.
Yeah, it just felt random, which there were
Yeah.
a bunch of superstar receivers I felt like that had random misutilized performances in week one. Even Justin Jefferson, he ended up with 44 yards and a touchdown late. So
Yep.
I'm with you. I'm standing by our superstar receivers early. For my not worried about it this week, I'm going to go back to the Bengals, who I mentioned looked iffy against the Cleveland Browns in week one. They did. Absolutely concerning performance. However, I still think Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to be fine. It's actually one of those things. I saw a tweet about this. Apparently, Joe Burrow was like 1-9 in weeks 1 and 2 coming in to this game this year, and I think escaping with a win is actually a pretty good outcome for Joe Burrow. He's a guy who we've seen get his feet underneath him later on in the seasons in the past, and to me, I think from a fantasy perspective, or even just a betting player props perspective, you're going to still have some opportunity with Chase bouncing back, even though it was a quiet performance. T. Higgins only had 3 catches as well, partially because I thought the Bengals' run game didn't look all that good. I think they're going to have to lean further on Joe Burrow through the air than even they've wanted to in the past if Chase Brown is supposed to be a bell cow this year. It was a weird game script game down the stretch. They were just trying to survive. I would expect a big bounce back performance from Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in week 2 and beyond. All right, let's move on here. We're going to do another look backwards here, but this time through the lens of what should we have bet. Let's take a look at all of our biggest hits from NFL week 1 from a should have bet that perspective. Dave's got the data on this one, Dave. So let's start with Thursday Night Football. What should we have bet?
Yeah, so Thursday night, we talked about it on the podcast. The under was the best bet Dimers had in that game, both for probability and value. We both loved that play. Well, whoops, sorry, I pulled that up too early. We got a little lucky. The skies literally opened up to save that under. I believe 21 first half points, just 3 in the second half after the weather delay. But it's a cash, so we took that. Also in that game, which I just pulled up prematurely, was we hit Javonte Williams, the number 1 touchdown edge we had in that game. We talked a little bit about the Cowboys backfield. We both love the value on Jaden Blue, who was inactive, so a void there if you bet it. But Javonte Williams was the go-to running back for the Cowboys, except for one big run by Miles Sanders, who then promptly fumbled. It was all Williams' backfield. He got a pair. I would expect him to very much be the guy next week, which we'll probably take a look at in the Dimers projections on the Thursday episode. And yeah, no luck on our Thursday Night Football same game parlay with A.J. Brown getting 1 target, but that poor luck didn't last too long, which we'll get to pretty shortly. On Friday, what do we have? Chiefs Chargers, and we didn't talk about that game too much on the podcast. We looked at the NFL Projections Hub, how to put that to work for betting props and alternate lines. We saw that we had a big discrepancy on Omarion Hampton's yards, and he did not clear the ladder, but he did hit over the 45.5 rushing yards. So again, the props hub did guide us in the right direction there. Just not for the plus money ladder. But Sunday, it was really all about Sunday for us. We started off pretty hot. We cashed our ×3 first touchdown round robin. We cashed a huge touchdown parlay, Sunday Night Football same game parlay. The round robin, we had Bijan Robinson, James Conner, Kyron Williams, Devin Achane, and Chase Brown. Bijan Robinson cashed right off the rip. literally starting off Sunday with a first touchdown hit. Then let's see, we got Chase Brown almost right after. That was pretty good. Took us a times two into the afternoon slate where we got Kyron Williams. If you happened to bet these guys on anytime touchdowns, it was a sweep. So, if you see us post this again, it's certainly a way to consider betting it in an alternate way. But the times three cash at odds of plus 15, 438 was pretty sweet.
For those that don't know, too, not to interject, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
But, obviously, round robins are unique conceptually, I would say, and I feel like it's something that the Dimers brand has almost become associated with the home run success. So, I guess could you just kind of elementary reset anyone who by chance is listening to this and is like, "What's a round robin?" But then also, why do we do first touchdowns for NFL as opposed to maybe anytime touchdowns, or the different ways you could potentially put these together?
Yeah, these are great points. So round robin betting, if you're unfamiliar, it's let's say you bet a parlay. We typically stick to 5 legs. It's a method we found to be productive for us. And what you're doing is you are betting on the individual combinations of those legs. So if you have a 5-leg parlay, you have 10 combinations of 2 in that parlay. So you would be betting on the combinations of 2. You have options. You could bet on the combinations of 3, combinations of 4, or the 5-leg parlay. What this does is provide you with a little. I wouldn't use the word insurance. There's really no such thing in betting, but let's say an out. A backdoor to cash your bet if you miss 1 leg or 2 legs, depending on how many you've round robined, and you can get some pretty nice payouts there with the odds. And you don't want to be betting a 5-leg home run parlay, touchdown parlay, missing by 1, and maybe not have gotten anything there. The reason we go with first touchdowns rather than anytime is the odds, really. You can get anytime touchdown odds at this range, but we really don't like to be putting guys under plus 300 or so in these. Just for the payout, you would like to be breaking even at the very least if you hit just 2, the minimum required to win. And if the odds are too low, you just can't do that. It's not a profitable strategy. You might get lucky, but long term, you definitely want to stick with an odds range we find to be about plus 300 to plus 500 or so. We lean on probabilities here rather than value because the idea is to hit as many as you can. You're a little less worried about the edge. And we've like Greg said, as this has become kind of synonymous with dimers in football and baseball season.
And what better way to start the NFL season, too? I was just refreshing Twitter while watching this, and the first touchdowns cashed. It was like, we're back. It was just incredible.
Yeah, it was pretty great. It definitely set the tone for what was a very good Sunday. And I'll use that to segue into this. 2 anytime TD edges we had on dimers on Sunday. Michael Penix anytime, Zach Charbonnet anytime. The value on these guys was pretty substantial. We had Penix at 22.2%, but his best odds were 850. That should only be about plus 450 off the top of my head for fair odds. Charbonnet at 30.3%. He should have only been about 250, I believe, or so. So myself and independently, another user in the Dimers Discord, took these 2 edges, played them together, hit a plus 4,400 anytime TD parlay with the Dimers Pro best touchdown props. Yeah, pretty sweet. If you were watching this game, the Michael Penix touchdown was like a bit of fate, a bit of luck, a bit of I don't know what just happened. He dove for the goal line and thought it was going to be a touchback with him losing the ball at first. So then they ran another play. There's a penalty or lost yards. They must have ran 5-6 plays within the 10. And he scrambled in from the last one to slam the ball on the goal line and cash. And Charbonnet got the first touchdown in that game, I believe, as well. So it was overall pretty exciting stuff.
Off with the bang.
Yeah, and then just one more. We rounded out Sunday, cashing our Sunday Night Football same game parlay. We did not talk about this one on the podcast because it didn't exist at the time of the episode, but it was on our website on dimers.com. We posted it all over our socials, in the Discord, pretty sweat free. Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers hit their yards effortlessly. James Cook scored a touchdown in the third quarter, and we did not have to sweat our bet after that.
Yeah.
Plus 525 Sunday Night Football.
Best kind of bet right there, one you're on sweating for long for. This is also probably a good reminder. Follow us on social media at DimersCom on Twitter so you can see all of the various bets that we're playing any given day. And very interactive is what I would say from how we operate the Dimers Twitter, right? We're there to answer any questions. If you ever have any concerns or want to know exactly why we're betting a certain thing, you can interact right there with us. Someone from our team will take care of it. But also just throughout the day, we kind of send updates as some of these parlays we put together with high probabilities and high edges are coming to fruition. So, it's a fun experience for sure. Ways to get interactive and bet as a community. Also join the Dimers Discord as well, because as Dave alluded to, we're sending all of this data in there as early as possible so you can jump on it with us.
Yep. Also, one more quick thing. NFL Week 1. If you were listening to podcast episode 1, we cashed both of the Dimers best bets. So, I know all the tensions on the touchdowns and the parlays, but for you straight bettors, we gave you Jets plus 2.5. We gave you Vikings money line, who also covered the minus 1.5, which we had an edge on. So, there can be a lot to get through on dimers.com, but in the podcast, Greg and I took you through it. We found you 3 game line winners that we talked about right here. So, yes.
Yep. And this is week 2 of the pod, but just so everyone knows, the plan for this 2 episodes a week going forward. So we'll kind of give you a look backwards and then a look forwards later in the week. But again, make sure you're interacting with us wherever you can, whether that's social media or Discord, because sometimes these pods are going to be recorded before we even put some of these plays together. You don't want to miss out on a winner the way the Sunday Night Football parlay went down this past week. So, all right, there's your advice on how to make sure you're not missing out on anything from us on a week-to-week basis. Speaking of looking forward here, let's talk NFL futures for just a moment. So as we sit here today recording this on Tuesday, our model is currently running its post-week 1 update. So on the second episode this week, we will take a deeper dive into the latest movement. Lord knows things are going to change based on what we saw in week 1. However, we can still currently use the odds that were available before week 1 and just check in and see if there's anything we think has value. So what is your first impression of our NFL futures as we sit here today?
Well, the Ravens have basically barely moved. They were our top probability. So that's to be expected. They were in control in that game. They looked a juggernaut, got away from them a bit at the end. And a team like that's not going to see any major movement, off of one game like that. Similarly, though, we did see the Bills shorten up. They're at their shortest at plus 500 now from their longest of plus 800 when we shot episode 1. We did have them at about fair odds, a little bit of value if you could get them at plus 800, which was not very widely available. They were definitely in the 650, 700 range, but now down to plus 500. Pretty short favorite for 1 week into the season. Eagles are about the same at plus 700. I think that makes sense. They looked good, but they didn't exactly blow the doors off the Cowboys, so I wouldn't expect any movement really. We did talk about the 49ers as a value play. They were plus 2,000. They're down to a general consensus of plus 1,800 now, as low as plus 1,600 that I can see when I'm looking across all the books right now. So, I mean, if you got it early, you got a little value there, which we did highlight. We said our fair odds at that time were about plus 1,600. So that seems like the books are starting to correct that. They didn't look crazy good in week 1. And now you have George Kittle. I just saw an update. I don't know if he's going on IR, but he's missing at least 2 games. Brock Purdy's got a shoulder something, an injury. Will he play? Probably, but it's a little shaky in San Francisco, so it's probably one I wouldn't touch now. If you got the value early, you're probably pretty happy. But I'd wait and see if anything changes here as far as the health of the 49ers, because that's the most important factor, perhaps for any team in the NFL, good or bad, is the health of your team. And they could be very talented, but if they're banged up once again, it might look a bit like last year, if not just a little bit better record.
Yep. Yeah, when you're betting futures, it feels like half the time you are, I don't know, banking on some luck to happen, right? Anything you're
Yes.
betting months down the line, you have to have good injury fortune for maybe a better word than luck there. But yeah, the Niners have the Niner thing going on. This happens every year, it seems. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle always have their bouts with various injuries. And unfortunately, it's happened very early on this season for San Francisco with that entire trio. So we'll continue to monitor this. As I mentioned, in the second episode this week, we will take a look at the updated model and figure out if there is any significant edges based on where the odds currently sit with the sports books. Two things that I am going to keep an eye on and really wait for the model's outputs to come out on. We talked about how the Chiefs preseason did not have of any value whatsoever. I mean, valued in the sports books as one of the favorites, almost on par with the Ravens and the Bills. And the Chiefs came out, lost week 1 to the Chargers. So it seems like the model had the right read on the Chiefs, wondering how much that edge is going to change one way or the other now that the Chiefs are sitting 0-1 and their odds have dipped a little bit. And then number 2, on the inverse side, the Packers were a team that our model coming in, we talked about, did not see any immense value in after the Micah Parsons trade and maybe mispriced the other way. Packers look pretty dominant against Detroit right away. So I'll be curious if our model has changed its opinion on the Packers after an impressive week 1, or if we still think that might be one of the worst values at the sports books. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, they're quite down now. I think about plus 825 or so. So if you were a Packers guy, hopefully you got them early. We are now famously on the record as calling them out, but yeah.
I can live with that for what it's worth.
Yeah,
Maybe it's
yeah.
years of me already inherently hating Green Bay, but we'll find out if we come right or wrong on that. Okay, let's
Amen.
talk a little more week 2 here. So props, anytime touchdown value against the spread. Our models projections for week 2 are out for many of these various ways that you can bet these games. It's still early. Reminder, we're recording this on Tuesday, so things can shift throughout the week as well. That's why you should come back on a day-to-day basis and always keep the pulse on the latest as our model updates in real time. But let's just jump out ahead of it early, Dave. Where can you take us? What are the early values here for week 2?
Yeah, so let's just take a quick look at our top 5 spread picks. So this is just our probabilities to cover the spread. These went 11-5 in week 1, which is pretty good. That's just going by based on the team that we favored to cover, not based on value, not based on money line. Just whichever team was 50% or higher on the model spread pick. If the spread was dead even, we lean towards the predicted final score, because since the game can't end on a half a point, the model will give us a definitive, so to speak, result in the final score. So we're running a pick'ems contest in the Discord with our users. 11-5 from the model was good for second place in the pool, as 2 users managed to beat the Dimers bot by 1. We gave them a little shout out in the Discord yesterday, but they ended up 12-4 on the week, and they're competing for some bragging rights. Yeah, not bad. A little exclusive Discord badge to the winner, and maybe a few extra perks we may throw their way for coming out on top at the end of the season. So our top 5 spread probabilities in week 2 are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 2.5 on the road versus the Texans. We've got that at 58.2%. The Jets plus 7 at home versus the AFC East Bills at 57.0%. The Raiders plus 3.5 at home versus the Chargers, 56.5%. Giants plus 6 on the road versus the Cowboys at 55.6%. And we'll close it out with the Titans at plus 5.5 at home versus the Rams. That's 54.2%. There are a couple other teams over 50% in the early week predictions. It's very possible these will shore up and change as lines move. Money comes in, and we see different odds throughout the week. So as Greg mentioned, it's very important to check throughout the week. But if you were locking in your pick'ems for your pick'em pools today, these 5 teams, the Bucks, Jets, Raiders, Giants, and Titans, would be our top 5 recommendations for covering the spread in week 2.
Couple interesting spots there too, Dave. Like
Yeah.
I'm eyeing both the Bills and the Chargers off some emotional wins in week one. Come down to the wire type game, statement performances. Now you go on the road in week two. That's a spot schedule wise that historically has been profitable to bet. So kind of I'd circle those ones. I'm a big spot better. When I see a couple spots that I like that the model agrees with, I've got my eye on those. How does it feel to see your Dallas Cowboys on the wrong end of one of our early values yet again?
I hate it. I hate to see the Cowboys have to, maybe put in the effort to beat the Giants, a team they have absolutely dominated in the regular season the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. But it's reasonable. The Giants didn't look anything special against the Commanders, but I think Debo got a late touchdown. Otherwise, it was something like a 14-6 game for the most part, I believe. Didn't get a lot of red zone coverage on that one. But if the Giants defense is going to be able to contain the Commanders to a pretty reasonable score, there's no reason I think they can't do it to the Cowboys, who put up 20 points in week one. Left a few on the board for sure. That defensive front, as everybody knows, is very formidable for the Giants, so it should be a pretty good game. I hope the Cowboys cover this personally, but 55.6% is pretty strong from the model. If I were doing my own personal pick'ems, I would be following the model's probabilities and take that here. Whether or not that means you want to bet it is up to you, but the model's got a pretty strong lean in this one.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, what about props?
Props. So we got a lot of props on Dimers, and we can take you through a little demo here of how to use the top props features on dimers.com. So I'm going to show you guys pretty much what the props page looks like, what our NFL predictions look like, how to use them to get different value, how to navigate them week to week. And we'll take a look at some specific bets that we have on the board here as we look ahead to week two. So this is our NFL predictions page. I should probably check in this podcast if I'm streaming it. I am, in fact. So here's our NFL predictions page. Right here, you'll find every single game prediction of the week. You'll see money line probabilities, the spread. You can jump ahead by multiple weeks here. Pick any week you want. We'll have the data if the lines are up, which with the NFL, they famously are very well in advance. You can go back past years and see some predictions if you want. If you're dying to know what we had on Chiefs Buccaneers in the Super Bowl in 2020, you can do that. You can also jump around to any given week that we have on site since Dimer's inception. So there's a big bevy of historical data here as well. So that's week one. So best props, you click on this best props icon. You'll come here to our full NFL best props page. This will feature every bet with value that we have on the website at that given time. Every player prop bet, that is. So for the purposes of this, we're going to click on the filters. We can see game by game breakdowns here, market breakdowns. You can see how many props we have in every market, how many props we have in every game. Right now, the Commanders Packers on Thursday has the most prop value. That may be due to availability of lines, as it's the closest game on the schedule. It probably has more open, so this could change. You could see a lot more props filter in for these Sunday games, Monday night games as well. I believe there's a doubleheader this week. Steelers, Seahawks with 8, Broncos, Colts, Eagles, Chiefs, each with 6 as our top prop games of the week. So when you come into the props page, it can look a little overwhelming. There's a lot here, which is why those filters are really helpful. We also have this toggle here that you could turn off every single prop to just our high value ones, which right now is the majority of them. This will remove every prop that doesn't get a high value signal from the model. High value signal means it is over a particular edge threshold for that particular bet. With our edges, you can also here in the filters slide the edge range to adjust what edge you want to find. If you have seen something where you think or are noticing that bets between 4% and 10% are hitting the most often, then you can adjust your slider for that, look it up, and you'll only return bets in that particular range. So, for a little week 2 NFL look ahead, let's do a little demo of sorting through our top props from various games. How about these 4 games where we have the most props in? Let's I'll ask you, Greg. What should we do? Should we look at the top overall prop in each game, or should we just look at our best touchdown value?
Give me touchdown values.
Touchdown value, great. So from this filter screen, you're just gonna select all. You'll select score a touchdown. That'll bring up every touchdown prop we have across all games. We want to look at Commanders Packers, so we'll click on this. One prop, show our one touchdown prop in this game, and it's Austin Eckler with a 36.3% probability, 5.5% edge at plus 225 odds on DraftKings. So Austin Eckler did not find the end zone in week 1. Bill Krosky Merritt took over. RB4 was not to be believed.
America's favorite, Krosky Merritt. The model says be careful.
Hey, the model had an edge on Krosky Merritt in week 1, and it has, in our projections, which we can maybe touch on later, has put him as the RB1 and the output anyway. What that means for volume and what he does, TBD. But he got the workload, he got the touches. So, but anyway, model has Austin Eckler for touchdown value in week 2 on Thursday Night Football against the Packers. As you can see, there's only one high value edge in this game, so this toggle will do nothing. If there were more, you could find yourself the best value or just find the best overall probability in the game. That's up to you. Let's go down to Seahawks Steelers. Looks like no touchdown props in this game. So if you're looking for your best prop value, you can just come down here, click select all, and get them all. Oh, well, if you want some big touchdown value, you'll find it here. But yeah, these might be a bit rich for my blood. You'll probably want to wait and see what type of prop value pops up in this if you are not looking for those types of markets.
I have Zach Charbonnet on 2 fantasy teams. I love to see that 2 touchdowns at the top of the list, though.
Hey, he outworked Kenneth Walker. So actually, let's talk about that real quick. He outworked Kenneth Walker in game 1. Looked much better. He scored the first touchdown. Yep. Yeah, I mean 10%, that would be fair odds. 9.8%, that would be fair odds of about plus 900, plus maybe 925 at 9.8%. So I mean the edge you're getting here is massive. Plus 2200 for Charbonnet to score 2 touchdowns. I might look at him for 1 off that and maybe a side play on 2+, but another way you can just use these predictions to see the flat out craziest bet you can make in any single game. Let's take a look at one of our next ones, Broncos Colts. There's some touchdown value that probably anybody would like to see. And look, it extends to 2+ for Jonathan Taylor. Plus 100 odds for Jonathan Taylor on DraftKings. We have him 56.1%. That means he should be minus odds. So this even money right here is a gift. He's also a tutty threat. Gets a tutty threat signal, which we give to only the highest probability touchdown scorers in our props model. You can see here, Jonathan Taylor, 2+ touchdowns. What do we got for the odds? Plus 600, probability 19.9%. That should be closer to plus 400. So, I mean, if you're a crazy man, crazy better, Jonathan Taylor 2+, Zach Charbonnet 2+. That might be the Michael Penix, Zach Charbonnet of week 1 that we're waiting to hit from dimers.com. So really, really a whole lot of ways you can extrapolate prop value from here. Real quick, I'll just take a look. If we aren't looking at touchdowns, you want to look at rushing yards, rushing attempts, receiving yards, receptions. You really have a really wide range of options when you have access to the complete Dimers Pro props tool. Like I said, this will update for sure throughout the week as markets open up. I think you're seeing some pretty minimal numbers in some of these games because there just simply aren't markets open. I was just taking a quick look. I couldn't even see Jacques Charbonnet line on a few books yet. So even the touchdown props will filter in throughout the week. So be sure to check back here once more pop in throughout the week and get your best prop value on dimers.
And as you mentioned that too, talking about different books, some don't even have props out yet. It's why you should always come back closer to the games in the week, because as the sports books do provide lines for all of these various sorts of bets, reminder, Dimers works with bunch of sports books. So we will find the edge at whatever sports book that it is. That's where you'll see the edge and the probabilities to match. And then it'll tell you where to bet it all in one nice, easy to use place. So thank you, Dave. That's great. The props page has always been my favorite part of the site, truly. There's just so much you can sort through, as you just demonstrated, whether it's touchdowns, yards for NFL. Similar thing with other sports too, right? You can use this exact same sort of workflow that we just demoed for baseball as we get into the postseason, and many other sports as well. So go check it out. All right. I think I spoke on fantasy football briefly. I have Charbonnet on my teams, and I'm off to a good start with that. But Lord knows I need waiver wire help. I think everybody's looking for those big waiver wire ads. After week one is typically an important time to hit the waiver wire. Sometimes you can get out on somebody that your entire league missed on in the draft. And sometimes we've seen league winners be added to rosters before week two's game. So let's use the model to maybe try and inform us on where we should be looking in the waiver wire this week. What are your top names you're keeping an eye on, Dave?
Yeah, so real quick, this is going to be a bit of a new thing for us this year. We've always had some DFS projections on dimers, and we've done a little bit of one-off fantasy content as we have the projections and probabilities that you can use to, give yourself some insight. But this is the first time that we've actually had full-on PPR and half PPR fantasy points on the website, and they're not just, you know, uh, combining the stats that you have. It's an actual outputted projection for these formats. So it's pretty cool. We're actually really excited about it. We did a couple things on social media over the weekend looking at some rookies and how we projected them to finish in fantasy this week. Or in week one. So yeah, this should be pretty fun. I'm going to pull up here some guys that are on the radar this week. For those who may be unfamiliar, we'll just discuss these positions, how much they are rostered in leagues, and what the Dimers model projects for them in week two. For a baseline, I'm just going off of the roster percentages in Yahoo leagues in a 12-person league. So QB Daniel Jones, first up, 5% rostered in leagues. Daniel Jones had himself a massive week, finished as a top 5 QB, 2 rushing touchdowns. Dimers model projects him for 15.6 fantasy points, 211.9 passing yards, and 21.4% for an anytime touchdown. Now, that's only QB 31 on the week. So that might not do it for you if you are looking to replace some big time production, which you probably shouldn't be this early in the season. But he's got the rushing floor. He helped get Michael Pittman in the end zone, who's had a tough time of doing that in recent years. Colts look really energized. I would definitely play him over Cam Ward. If you are facing a Brock Purdy injury, it's probably a good substitute for you there. Might be matchup dependent. As we said, this particular matchup might not be great. He's got only 15.9 or 15.6 point projection from the Dimers model. But if you need a QB, didn't like what you saw from yours in week one, Daniel Jones should probably be on your radar and could maybe even be had for free and not a waiver wire pickup. Wide receiver Quentin Johnston. I don't think anyone saw this coming, especially after Ladd McConkey's breakout rookie year. But Quentin Johnston scored 2 touchdowns, was a top wide receiver of the week. And look, why not 2 wide receivers in LA, right? Justin Herbert's certainly the kind of guy who could support that. Our week 2 projections, 8.7 PPR points, 39.4 receiving yards, and a 23% anytime TD projection. That's about wide receiver 3-4 range. Not quite the week one explosion spot he had. I doubt that's going to happen every week with Quentin Johnson, who we've kind of been waiting to see this for a couple years now. But the Chargers drafted him in the first place to be a go-to guy for Justin Herbert, who might now be in the midst of a potential MVP season. You definitely want that upside on your bench, if not in your starting lineup. I'd probably play him over someone like Chris Olave, who did have a decent week one. He's a wide receiver 3 flex in our projections. Another wide receiver, probably pretty popular this week, Hollywood Brown on the Chiefs, only 25% rostered, which is actually pretty surprising, even though he was going late in drafts. Worthy's hurt. We don't know how long. Dislocated shoulder. No timeline yet. He is not even ruled out for this week, though. That would surprise me if he plays. Hollywood Brown immediately took his volume. His biggest play did come on some busted coverage where he was wide open, but he should be the de facto wide receiver 1 in Kansas City with Xavier Worthy out. 11.0 PPR points in week 2 by our projection. 28.7% anytime TD. That's a wide receiver 3 that you should feel pretty good about putting in at the very least in your flex. Wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. These points, the projections won't do a lot for you. Just 8% rostered, kind of understandable with not knowing how he'd fit in this offense. But he found the end zone, just 2 targets, 2 catches, but he scored. The Ravens looked a juggernaut. He should be worked in, I think, pretty regularly, if not on low volume. So you might be battling that. He might be kind of touchdown or bust. Not someone I'd be jumping to start, but he should probably be rostered a little bit higher. Just a 10.9% probability to score in week 2, though. So if you are, 0-1 or 0-2 with median scoring and you're desperate for a win, I probably wouldn't lock him in. But if you could pick him up for almost nothing, you probably should.
That projection also shows how touchdown dependent he is based on what you just said, right? Projected 3 PPR points, but yeah, obviously you're going to exceed that if he catches the touchdown. So he turned back the clock a little bit with the grab. I will not be surprised to see him be like a huge red zone threat this year, but yeah, maybe one that I'd be a little more skeptical of compared to some of the other names on this list.
Yeah, I mean, come bye weeks, you might be wishing you had him on the roster to fit in if you have nobody. It is Lamar Jackson throwing to him, so he's still got the upside. But yeah, probably wouldn't start him right away. The only running back we'll look at here and the highest rostered player of these, Dylan Sampson from the Browns. Interesting backfield in Cleveland. There were a ton of guys who took a carry or a touch on Sunday. They just did sign Quinshon Judkins, so how this is actually going to shake out, we don't quite know. But Sampson was the workhorse. He scored. He's, like I said, the highest rostered player on here. 20 touches, 8 receptions. That's PPR gold. He was the lead back. Jerome Ford was non-existent. Quinshon Judkins will surely factor in pretty much right away. But you definitely want Sampson on your roster as this shakes out. He's available in more than 50% of Yahoo leagues, projects for 10.7 PPR points, just under 60 total yards, and a 36.6% TD probability. That's RB2 upside. So if he's available, put in your claim. Don't let someone else snag him. And our only tight end we'll look at, pretty much a dart throw here, but Juwan Johnson really went off in week 1. 11 targets, 8 catches for 76 yards. He was a tight end safety net for a QB with minimum upside. So he's got a good chance to be a sponge for volume from Spencer Rattler. 5.3 points projected this week, 15.5% anytime TD. Not going to juicy up a lot, but he was tight end 4 in week 1. And if you lost George Kittle, or if Bowers is banged up more than it looks like he says he is, then you probably want to go for Juwan Johnson. Again, though, you could probably get him for nothing and may not have to put in a waiver claim. So if you have a really nice spot, I wouldn't burn it on him.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you for that. Hopefully we can help you get some insights that could potentially win your fantasy league. Dylan Sampson, waiver request has just been put in for me on the fly as we go through this. So thank you for that. All right, let's talk golf for just a moment as we turn the calendar a little bit here in the golf world. The Ryder Cup upcoming, a new PGA Tour season almost upon us. It is the Procore Championship that is first up on the schedule. So take it away. How are we looking to bet the Procore Championship?
Yeah, so this is going to be the first event of FedEx Cup Fall. For those that aren't familiar, it's a 7-event stretch that will help decide who actually gets their PGA Tour card next year. We're going to Napa, Silverado Country Club. It's par 72, 7,138 yards. Only the top 100 in FedEx Cup standings are now fully exempt for 2026, and 70 of those spots are locked up from those who played in the FedEx Cup Championship. So there are only 30 cards up for grabs. You probably will see some of the more deeper cut guys really playing aggressively, trying to get their spot. Not much to lose at this point. So if you're on the fringe, you might want to take a look at some guys who are competing for those spots down below. But for the sake of the Dimers model, we're just going to do a brief overlook of our favorites and some value that we have. So these are our top 10 win probabilities for the Procore Championship. Unsurprisingly, led by Scotty Scheffler, over 36% probability, plus 225. It's value for the model, but that's a really rough price to get him at. We've occasionally seen value on Scheffler a few times this year. We did bet on him a couple times, but usually at slightly better odds. We got him at plus 500 at the PGA Championship. I think we were 2-2 betting on him to win. We generally avoided the really short plays. It's kind of a tough spot to be profitable. He's still competing against fields of 100 guys. These are just not great odds on someone even the best in the world at what he does. So right behind that, you have Russell Henley, 7.4% and plus 1,600. This is some pretty sweet value here. Henley's fair odds would be just plus 1,250. He's been a very popular pick for the model this year, especially in placement value. He's got double-digit top 10 finishes, a pair of T2s, including most recently at the Tour Championship, which we just had. So he's in as good form as he could be. He's fourth-ranked golfer in the world, excluding the live rankings. The one world golf rankings are a bit of a mess, but he's a very accurate driver and a really strong iron game. He's got value to win. We'll look at our placement too, but he's a good ladder play at top 5, top 10, and top 20 based on our model's probabilities. Just below him in third, we have Ben Griffin, 5.6% probability to win at plus 2,800 odds on Bet Rivers. That would be fair at just about plus 1,700, $10 better. That's a $110 difference. This is a huge value. He's 7th in strokes gained total this whole year. He's won twice, plus a runner-up. And in his last 15 tournaments, his last 12 tournaments, he's finished top 15 10 times. So he's really hot. He was a bit of a breakout this year. Good value on a really talented golfer. Also a guy with good ladder play potential at top 20, top 10, and top 5 as well. I'm going to take a quick look here at our top 20 probabilities. You're not going to see a huge different group of guys here, but you'll see much different probabilities and different odds. Scotty Scheffler, 90.6% to finish top 20 is comical, but also the reality of the man. Russell Henley, as you can see,
Crazy.
Russell Henley.
Isn't it crazy?
Yes,
It's not like it should surprise us anymore, but
no,
it's just wild.
Yeah, every time I watch the guy, he's doing something I can't believe he is doing in front of my very eyes. So we're not going to be betting on Scotty Scheffler at minus 800, but we will definitely be betting on Russell Henley, Ben Griffin, and Cameron Young, who all have over a 50% probability to finish top 20, which is notable. But beyond that, Ben Griffin and Cameron Young are both priced at plus 100, but they're pushing closer to 60%, 57% for Young to finish top 20. That's huge value. This field is not very strong outside the top of it. So, a lot of the European and Asian golfers, Canadian golfers, a lot of them are not on this or in this field. So they're really competing with the Ryder Cup squad and some of those guys. So getting a top 20 as a guy projected for a top 5 finish is some pretty intriguing value. If you play all three of these guys together, you get a plus 552 parlay. You do have to be a little careful with ties as you can dead heat and lose some of your payout there. So if you don't mind paying a little extra juice, you can look at the top 20, including ties market. I usually look at those when I'm looking at top 5, top 10, as it's a much narrower window. You don't want to lose too much on a dead heat when you have three guys split, a fifth spot. So yeah, Procore Championship, lots of really good stuff on here. We'll touch on these events throughout the weeks, each time one comes up, and we'll recap some of our big wins throughout the year of these FedEx Cup fall events. But yeah, Russell Henley, Ben Griffin, great picks to win here, and consider this top 20 parlay with Henley, Griffin, and Young at Silverado Country Club in Napa.
I'm in. I love it. Look for the fire emojis whenever you're looking through the model. All right. I have
Yeah.
2 quick golf questions based on just how you laid that out for us. Number one, Scotty Scheffler with the value mark next to his name, right? It's not often you would see that for a guy that his odds have been nuked so much. So you mentioned that's happened a couple of times this year. I guess how frequent is it that the model actually shows it to be a wise, profitable bet to back Scotty Scheffler? And is there any history on how he's performed if it is rare, those times that it pops up and says that we should bet him?
Yeah, so it's more often than you might think, considering the odds are so short. But that's also because our model understands how good Scotty Scheffler is, and his probability to win is often that much higher than anybody else. If you looked at those results, you saw Scheffler at over 36%. The next guy is I think it was 7.4% for Henley. There's no Rory McIlroy in this field, which guys like that will, certainly eat up some of that top probability. But even then, we were seeing Scotty over 25% in fields with the best golfers in the world also competing. We did highlight the value on him a few times this year. I think 4 or 5 times. I know for sure we cashed him at plus 500 on the PGA Championship and at plus 300. I think the CJ Cup, Byron Nelson. Not odds that I'm really looking to play on a golfer, but if you were strictly looking for the value and the model's telling you the best guy in the world has an edge, it's something to consider. And if you have a golf boost, that's where I'll do it. I'll slap the boost on Scheffler and take his odds to something at least a little more palatable.
It's a great point on the boost, right? Because sometimes these sports books will give you like sports specific ways to juice up your odds a little bit. And I don't know. I feel like it's very easy to take like a 50% boost for a tournament and throw it on some crazy long shot parlay, thinking, oh, what if I can turn $5 into something crazy? But sometimes the wiser move is to just find a way to juice something that is a really high probability to hit. So I can tell you this, I've watched enough Scotty Scheffler this year to know anytime there's any opportunity where it feels like his odds are a little mispriced, you want to jump on that. Even if he bogeys the first hole of a tournament, sometimes that's where I'm looking to jump in. So I found it interesting, at least, to see that the model actually shows value while he's still a sizable favorite. And then one more question for you. You mentioned laddering some of these plays. If you've got a guy that shows value in a top 10 or a top 20, what would you recommend to any bettors who may be new to golf betting or new to the concept of putting a ladder bet together? How do you go about deciding what unit sizes to bet where when you put together a ladder bet?
Yeah, that's a great question. Usually it's dependent on the odds that I'm getting in the individual bet, but a good rule of thumb is to maybe spread about 1 unit that you would bet across the entire ladder play. So if you are betting $100, for example, bet $50 on the golfer to win, you could bet $25 on that golfer to finish top 5, $15 on them to finish top 10, $10 top 20. Or I'm sorry, I reversed those. How much you would be breaking that down? Sorry, you want to put the most on the the most likely scenario. You'd want to put the $50 on the top 20, the 25 on the 10, and scale down that way. $5 on the win, for example. It's the best way to make sure that you're not over investing in a singular golfer. I mean, a bad day can take him from in contention to out of contention entirely, and you could lose all the bets. So if you put your largest amount of the stake on the top 20, he hits the top 20, you should cover the rest if they don't win. And if they do, you're looking at a nice, profitable tournament.
Nice. Yeah, that's good clarification. Thank you. Because I know some recreational bettors before that have fallen in love with the idea of laddering. And then, I'm talking to them like, oh, geez, how much did you put on this? It's like, well, I put 10 units on it, like 2 units on each leg of the
Yeah.
ladder. No, 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 no,
Yeah, you
no.
better hope it hits then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dial it back.
Yeah.
And look, sometimes, look, we would never encourage irrational, irresponsible gambling, right? That's why I wanted to ask the question. But yeah, it's it's nice when it hits. Certainly not nice when you don't. I feel like if you ladder correctly, it's a way to, I don't know, almost the same way we were talking about with round robins, right? Sort of just give yourself various outs in the way that
Mhm.
you're trying to bet something. And that's a very fun way to do it with golf specifically. So, all right. Thank you, Dave. Looking forward to the Procore Championship. Should be another fun tournament on the PGA Tour. We're going to close the show here in just a moment. But first, I would like to put the spotlight on our Dimers Champ of the Week. It is Zoe Glitch 32, who cashed a crazy Thursday night football parlay. So we took our best bet of the under 47.5, our top touchdown score edge of Javonte Williams, but for 2 touchdowns for Javonte. And then the under on Jalen Hurts' passing yards at 212.5 yards. We had it right on the mark. This cashed a crazy plus 12645 same game parlay. Zoe, hats off to you, one of our most active users, chatting with the community and our big soccer presence in the Discord, always sharing some fun slips. So crazy hit here. What a way to start off NFL season. Kudos to you, Zoe Glitch 32. We also would like to recap Dimers Platinum here. We've got the bet drop coming tonight for the upcoming week from Dimers Platinum. Dave, what happened last week with Dimers Platinum?
Big week. The first week, modest week the second week, but so far we are well ahead of our projected ROI for the season of about 6%. We've got a 15.24% ROI with a collective record of 13-8 through 2 weeks. That's a profit of 3.2 units and $320 for a $100 better, which means those people have already paid for their platinum subs after 2 weeks. We've got about a dozen weeks left to go, so there should be plenty more to come.
Fingers crossed. Gotta love it. Yeah, make sure you jump right in. Save $70 with code PLATINUM279 at ai.dimers.com. All right, Dimers this week. What else do we have? The end of WNBA regular season. We've got 5 games tonight, 1 tomorrow, and Thursday concludes with 4 games, and then it is the playoffs. I believe there's an outright that's still in play, Dave.
Yep, we've got a plus 1,800 Phoenix Mercury early season value play that's in the cards. The Mercury are a top 4 team or so this year. Great defense, big turnaround. Getting Alyssa Thomas, who's made herself an MVP case. She won't get it because Asia Wilson has just led the Aces on a 14-game winning streak. WNBA season's only 44 games long, so that's insane. And we also called them out. On July 22nd, our intern Derek wrote up an article by the Aces at plus 2,000. We're a value play with our fair odds only plus 400. They are down to plus 350. They come on, 14 games in a row. They lost their last game a few days after Derek wrote that article.
Crazy.
Yeah, WNBA futures model is great. I personally played the Atlanta Dream at plus 3,500 after 2 days of the season, and that's down to like 900 or so. They look excellent. So playoffs are really exciting here. We're going to be sad to see the season go because it's always been a profitable time for us. But yeah, waiting for some big wins here.
It's an exciting time to be a sports fan in general. You've got the convergence of a bunch of the major sports here in America. And yeah, when you get to playoff time, I feel like that's a very fun time to be a sports bettor and more importantly, a Dimers user because we usually have some sort of futures value still in play late in the season. So things heating up on the WNBA side. You got to love it. U.S. Open just came to an end on the tennis side of things, but we've got regular ATP and WTA events back up and running. And the tennis model has been hot.
Yeah, like I said, we closed the U.S. Open on an 8-1 run. Really close to hitting it out right there. Bunch of new markets though, so we have more bets than ever, more odds sourced than ever. Tennis model on Dimers is refreshed. It's new. It's hot. Check it out.
And we've told you about a bunch of creative ways you can use the model's data to put together fun and intelligent ways to bet and win some money. But we haven't talked much about our soccer score grids just yet. That's another thing we'll have to give you some education on at some point on the podcast. But we've got the Premier League and MLS both rolling right now all weekend long. That's predictions, correct score grids that you can turn into some crazy round robins as well. So more to come on that down the line just a little bit. But plenty of sports that you can find value in the Dimers universe. Make sure that you join up, get access to Dimers Pro and Dimers Platinum so that you're not missing out on anything. All right. This has been a great episode. We appreciate everybody for listening wherever you get your podcasts or for watching us on the Dimers YouTube channel. We've got another episode coming later this week as well. We will go deeper into the week 2 NFL card, give you our official best bets. We'll take a closer look at that futures model as soon as it updates. And we'll give you an exclusive look at our touchdown round robin. We're going to drop that here on the podcast first. Dave, thank you for being here today, my friend. I'll give you the floor to sign us off.
All right. Thank you all for listening, watching, consuming. And like I said, we'll see you back Thursday. Please gamble responsibly and take care.